All right. Let's go live. How's everyone doing tonight? I'm getting my eyesight together here. I bought a new monitor because my old monitor was acting crazy. And now I need everything to be bigger. It's crazy. So you buy a bigger monitor, it seems like everything shrunk. So I can't see half of the stuff. I've been over here playing all day trying to increase the font size. And so bear with me because I might not see clearly. This probably the first time you didn't see me with glasses on, um, only because I cannot see. So we're going to work through that. So, guys, we are here for the accredited distressed property representative. This course actually was birthed out of the Chicago Association of Realtors dating back to 2007 when Deb Lopes was the director of education, and they had reached out to me to design a 3-hour short sale course for them. And I was already teaching what was then the SFR course for the National Association of Realtors. And I felt as if 3 hours of education was not enough education. And so I developed the ADPR, which is face to face for 3-hour classes. But we're not going to be on here 3 hours. What I plan to do is deliver 1 hour of content every single week from each of the 4 classes. So the first class tonight is short sales, the result of foreclosures, which was kind of like the pilot program, give your understanding of short sales, the timeline, things of that nature. Next Monday, we're going to do short sale forms. So every single form that one would use in a short sale process, we're going to give you all of those different forms. Keep in mind, you might need to have a different version of that form contingent upon the state that you're licensed in, but you'll know exactly what to ask for. And then the third class is Mastering Real Estate Financing in a Shifting Market. So what we're going to do for that is I'm reaching out to different lenders to come in and basically do a panel discussion on the different finance options. FHA is going to come back. I can tell you that right now. So the 203K purchase rehab, any Fannie Mae purchase rehab products, hard money loans or non-bankable loans, we're going to do a panel discussion plus education, which will be July the 11th. And then the week after that, we will finish up with mastering your marketing in a distressed real estate market. So I'm elated to see everyone here tonight. If you come over to the chat, I am dropping in a link again for the handout. Keep in mind, there's some things I'm going to have to still go out and come back with answers for you because I'm contemplating if I'm going to bring this course back. But a lot of people have been asking about foundation for foreclosures and short sales. So I decided, okay, now will be the time to bring that content back. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come over and put those questions in the chat. I am going to come over to Facebook and I'm going to also drop the link in there. All materials will be available for replay. And so I'm not going to take this down. It's still going to be in the system. All the handouts are going to be in the system. Every single resource and marketing is going to be in the system. Okay. So we're going to bear with me. But if you have any questions, I definitely want you to come over and type your questions into the chat. Okay. I want you to come over and type your questions into the chat. And if you can't, give me a thumbs up. If you see the word KISS, keep it simple, short sale, give me a thumbs up. Okay, excellent. Just want to make sure that you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing. I'm kind of laughing at all of these designations and certifications. I stopped typing them into everything only because they take up entirely too much space. So when we think about foreclosures and short sales, I do not believe we're going to see what we have previously seen going back in 2008. The reason I don't believe we're going to see what we've seen in the past is due to the fact that right now people still have equity. We've seen double-digit appreciation, but there are some people who have purchased in that last 12 to 18-month period of time that bought at the absolute height of the market, who might have paid a little bit too much for the property. Historically, when we start dealing with short sales, you're trying to save a client from foreclosure or develop a skill set in a niche market. So there are people who have done short sales ever since the beginning of the foreclosure crisis. And let me say this, our REO brokers have definitely done some business. But here would be the distinction. We hear a term called pre-foreclosures. There's really not a such thing as pre-foreclosure, or better yet, it is not public information in a pre-foreclosure state. What do I mean by that? So historically, a bank will file a notice of default on a property when the homeowner has missed three mortgage payments, three consecutive mortgage payments, or they're 90 days late. In that 90-day period, there is no public records that exist. There's no way for you to drive down the street and know that this homeowner is in trouble unless you're looking at things like deferred maintenance. Once a person has been 90 days late, the bank can file a notice of default. That means the foreclosure process has started. So for me, either you're in foreclosure or you're not. But that pre-phase where they're a couple of months late on their mortgage, there will not be any public information available to us, okay? We can read trends, and what banks are going to say is, hey, we have so many people in default, but they're not telling you what homeowner is in default. So you'll start to see different stats where banks will say that people are in default, but still a notice of default has not been filed yet. Once a notice of default has been filed, that means that foreclosure proceedings have started. And we're going to go through what the foreclosure timeline is, and it is different in every single state. And of course, this is a niche product. Right now, I will tell you, we met today, Skylar and I, with Wise Agent, and there's a company called Virtuance that we're pulling into our office. And I'm like, oh, this is going to give us all the data we need. We're going to know about probate. We're going to know about once a notice of default has been filed. So then we can start setting up our direct mail pieces when we get to that marketing. So two reasons. You want to save a customer from the end of the foreclosure process, but it is definitely a process, and it takes, let me say this, we've seen foreclosures that have taken up to 3 years. So tonight we're going to discuss what is a short sale, what is the foreclosure and its timeline. Is a short sale potentially right for your client? A short sale is not right for everyone. The hardship test of a short sale. So banks traditionally will not take less than what is owed on a property if a homeowner cannot prove hardship. So something is occurring in their life where they now have the inability to pay. They don't want to just take less than what's owed because you made a mistake in buying your property. And then what is going to go in a short sale package? Keep it in mind that we're actually going to go in great detail about that short sale package next Monday night. But I wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we've seen in the past. So I'm taking you back to 2011 here in Chicago with the Chicago Association of Realtors. We have a sales award annually. And platinum level realtors sell the most units or the highest dollar volume. And some of y'all might see some of these very familiar faces. I can't believe AU still had hair on his head. But these were the top producing agents in Chicago based on units sold, and everyone there sold REO properties. But let me give you an example who was in the REO market. Ayub, who's now a president of one of the divisions of Coldwell Banker here, Arthur, Rosari, Gary. Actually, Gary was the listing agent on this home, the home that I live in, because I purchased a REO property, which is an acronym for real estate owned. Jason Shapiro, Linda, actually Linda has retired to South America. Andre Bennett, this is funny. We got his boy Bill Flagg. So Bill, you see your boy Andre Bennett back in the day when he was killing it in the foreclosure short sale market. Frank Montrose was not in the REO market. Frank has always worked with purchase rehab transactions, but I will tell you, one thing that Frank did when we came into the REO market was the quality of the homes he was selling shifted. The houses that they sold prior to foreclosures was ho-hum at best. You can tell them I said it. When we came into the foreclosure short sale market, they totally upgraded how they were renovating properties. Okay. They really started they made them nice. They weren't nice at first. They were kind of distressed, kind of more like wholesaling. But then they upped their game. And here it is a decade later, and he is still a top producer when it comes to the acquisition of distressed properties, renovating them, putting them back on the market. Ira was a REO agent. Mauricio was an REO agent. Robert was an REO agent. Barbara, her son, is second generation in the business. Was a top REO agent. The only person not on that picture who was not in REOs is Mario Greco. He is a top producing luxury agent. He never did REO sales. So this kind of lets you know that every last one of them was selling 180 properties every single year. And we also had some other agents who were doing pretty good volume with the short sales. But if they were selling REOs, that means that they had master listing agreements with the different banks once the bank had taken possession of the property back into their inventory. So it's kind of funny just looking back almost a decade ago, what was going on. At that time, the rate of foreclosures was still high. Right now, foreclosure rates are low, but we are starting to see increases. So definitely homeowners we started to see a filing of notice of default. They're people who have been living off of the equity in their real estate. So that means that they've consistently been refinancing at a lower interest rate. Now the interest rates have gone up, and we're starting to see a slowing in the market. They're not going to be eligible to refinance at that same rate as they once were. And that's also why banks now want to become your new BFF. Lenders are really reaching out, trying to build rapport and relationships with us. You don't have to be friendly at this point. Everybody wants to be the realtor friend right now, because they're coming back to have to look at that purchase money. Okay, so refinance have dried up completely because the cost to borrow that money is more expensive now. So a short sale occurs when a lender is willing to accept less than the full mortgage payoff. Actually, Skylar has me booked on a call tomorrow for a client that I sold them a 2-flat building probably back in 2006, I think. Well, one of the tenants had 5 dogs in her unit. They need to do pretty much a gut rehab on this property, but the seller wants the ability to recoup all of the money in the rehab. And there's no way right now we're going to be able to do that. So that then means that they would be subject, in its as-is condition, to have to bring money to the closing to get rid of the property, but they can't rent, and they're going through a divorce. So that might end up as a short sale. So when we think about it, let's say that the house is worth $200,000. And you owe 180. But it's not just the fact that you owe 180. You owe 180, you have closing costs, you have all of your tax prorations. If all of the expenses to sell that property exceed $200,000 and you as the seller, you don't have the cash difference to bring to closing, then you will have to reach out to the bank to ask the bank to take less than what's owed. And it's not as simple as you just reaching out, okay? You have to demonstrate that financial hardship, and you have to put a lot of paperwork together that we're going to get to next week. I don't think we're going to have a lot of short sales, but I do believe we're going to have some. What I'm believing is that we're going to see a lot of properties that are going to be subject to sale where a notice of default has been filed. So that homeowner hasn't paid their mortgage. What is this going to look like on their credit? What is it going to look like for tax prorations? We have a deal right now. A young lady, she bought a property. She's upside down. She's relocated. It's been a lot of relocations because of Zoom towns where people, they left where they were living and they went to warmer climate and all those great things, and they don't have to come back because their job might now be virtual. Well, she needs to bring $8,000 to the closing table. She does not have $8,000. In her case, because she's known Skylar probably since grammar school, Skylar was willing to reduce his commission. I believe Nick negotiated that for him, so she won't be subject to doing a short sale. So there's a lot of situations. I'm not recommending that we take anything less than what we would traditionally charge as individuals, because there is no standard, there is no average or set compensation. What I will tell you though, when it comes to foreclosures and short sales, and this is not meant to be a violation of antitrust, I'm going to say again, we don't have a standard average commission. However, in a short sale situation, most lenders were willing to pay up to 6% commission. Now, some of them had rules and regulations under which they were willing to pay that. They would pay up to 6% if it was two agents from different companies, and they was willing to pay up to 5% if it was two agents, same company, and they were willing to pay up to 4% if it was one agent, whether they were acting as a dual agent or not. But there isn't any standard, average, or normal compensation. Let's remove that from our vocabulary because of antitrust rules and regulations, which is why the Department of Justice is currently suing the National Association of Realtors. So that short sale is going to occur if the lender must accept anything less than what is owed, and we can't negotiate, we're not successful in reducing our compensation, negotiating a water bill payoff, then you have to go to the bank. And the reason that the bank doesn't have to accept less, because when that homeowner purchased that property, they signed a deed and a note. FHA properties, I want you to start thinking about mortgage insurance protection. Mortgage insurance protection and PMI, private mortgage insurance, is designed and set up to ensure, it's insurance solely for the lender in case the homeowner defaults on the mortgage. And the reason that mortgage insurance protection, MIP, is so expensive is because FHA allows for a 96.5% loan to value. Historically, PMI, private mortgage insurance that you would get on a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac product, is going to be a little less expensive than mortgage insurance protection. But this is what I'm going to do. Let me stop the screen share so we can just kind of have a little discussion here. So FHA mortgages are the only mortgages that have MIP, mortgage insurance protection. However, when you close and you have an FHA loan, you have upfront MIP, okay? That is a charge at the time of close, and then you have this monthly mortgage insurance protection. Mortgage insurance protection is to FHA what PMI, private mortgage insurance, is to a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac product. It has two different names. When you see a HUD property, all of them are going to be a FHA foreclosure that had mortgage insurance protection. Okay, so all HUD properties are FHA foreclosures. Now, we did see a decline in FHA loans that were given out because so many people, so many homeowners were unwilling to accept a buyer with that. Let me say this, we've been there before. So I have a video I'm going to post inside of the group that FHA mortgage utilization before the foreclosure crisis was down to 3%. When we went through the foreclosure crisis, it went up to 30%. Once again, FHA mortgage utilization has been low. What we're going to start seeing now with interest rates going up, with the fact that sellers are not ruling the world this week, right? When it comes to a real estate transaction, you're going to see more and more people be willing to accept an FHA mortgage. And I'm just going to come over to the chat to see if there's any questions. Keep in mind that there is a link on Facebook and also in Zoom to the handout that I have available. Every last one of the classes will have its own handout, okay? So we will have a handout for every single class, all right? So, or the homeowner. What is this? Are you all still there? Yep, you still there. Says let me refresh. Okay, we back. Zoom, send a Zoom. I don't know why we keep on crashing, but we good. I see myself over here moving. The lender to see if the lender has any special programs. Okay, so if it crashes again, let me look. We back. The very first thing that should be done is that the homeowner should contact the lender. That's the number one, to see if that lender has any special programs. Number two, if they're financially eligible, they should try to reinstate the mortgage. That means catch up on any unpaid mortgages, okay? I'll give you a craziest thing. I can't even believe that I married him. When I met Steven, probably 2 years before I met him, he was gainfully unemployed. When I met him, he had 3 jobs. And what he had decided to do, because he thought it was a good idea, that he was going to stop paying his mortgage once he had the 3 jobs so that he could stockpile him some money. And so next thing, soon as we start dating, and I'm at this point, I know a lot about foreclosures. I'm like, what kind of nonsense is this, right? You got a bunch of equity in your condo. And he was like, look, I've been so long without money that as soon as I started making this money, I decided to save my money and I wasn't going to pay my mortgage. I had to, and this is when I knew I loved this fool. He let me, his girlfriend, called to negotiate the reinstatement of his mortgage. That means I had all his personal information. I knew how much money he had in the bank. I knew how much equity he had. I had his social security number, his bank statements. Like, he was wide open, right? And that's when I decided, okay, I know all his business. But the fact that he was willing to share that told me something about him. So you can reinstate, and he did reinstate his mortgage. You can negotiate a forbearance. A forbearance is when you can call a lender and you can say, hey, look, currently I'm unemployed, but I plan on having a job in the next 90 days. Can you tack on my unpaid principal and interest to the back of my mortgage and I not suffer any derogatory credit. So another example of that would be when we came into the foreclosure crisis. BMW was offering forbearance on your car notes. So I took a forbearance. Right now, I have 2 months credit on my statement because I never used it, even though I inquired to have it. So I still have the opportunity to not pay my car note for 2 months because they actually did a credit to my account. I still have a credit to my account for a couple of months because I asked for a forbearance that I never used the money. Um, Interest, you could refinance, but if you have derogatory credit, you're not going to be eligible most times to refinance. Here would be a recent example. We have a young lady. Skylar was writing an offer for, was sending it over yesterday, actually to Frank Montrose, kind of crazy. And he sent her, she was going to work with this different lender. Make a long story short, they said, hey, we see that you have a 30-day late on your credit. You're not eligible to buy right now. Well, it's supposed to be erroneous. So they're working now to get that off. So if you have lates, the likelihood is you won't be able to refinance at the best interest rate, which would then make the payment higher. Where we come in is they can sell the house. Now, what I want you to start doing is putting your marketing hat on. It becomes public information when a notice of default is filed. When a notice of default is filed, that's when you can start buying different lists, and they will call it a pre-foreclosure list, okay? But keep in mind, these people are in foreclosure. Before foreclosures ever became popular, I was already doing a direct mail campaign to homeowners where notice of default was filed because at that time I was a rehabber, and the markets is kind of similar to what we've just come out of. Every time a property would hit the market, right, those properties were disappearing. The only way that I acquired 7 properties to purchase and rehab over a 2-year period of time was because I was sending a direct mail marketing piece to homeowners where a notice of default had been filed. Okay. And that either I was buying those houses and rehabbing them, or I was selling them. But I always went to that homeowner as a real estate investor. Before we would sit down and start talking, I would make them sign. In our state, it is a notice of no agency. The reason for having them sign a notice of no agency, especially 2 things to keep in mind. If you're buying the property or you have a investor buyer who's buying the property, if your state has either ministerial acts or a notice of no agency, before you start talking in detail with that homeowner, you want them to sign that. Now, here in the state of Illinois, I can never act as a dual agent on a property in which I have a interest in. You will lose your license, okay? So I knew I wanted to buy these houses. I would have those sellers sign a notice of no agency. I would present to them a CMA for what I was willing to buy their house for. I then offered them the option. Now, mind you, I'm there with the notice of no agency, that if they don't like my offer, because I need to make a 20% return on my dollars, here is what you could potentially sell it for if the person is not a real estate investor. So I presented to every seller 2 different CMAs. One, if I sell your house as an agent. 2, if I buy your house as an investor. Keep in mind, I'm here today as an investor. I'm not here looking out for you or anything. So everybody house who I did not buy, I want you to know this, I sold their house for them. And the reason was they told me, they said, Marki, no one has told us the true value of our house. No one. You came in, you told us what you do, how you do it, what you need to make. So I don't want to take your offer, but I do want you to sell my house. And every listing that I took, All of them sold, every last one of them. So you can sell the house, but you can also think of it as being an investor. If you're going to be an investor, give them a notice of no agency, because if not, you're going to jeopardize your real estate license, because there is no state in this country that you can act as a dual agent on any transaction in which you have a interest in. And then the last thing you can do is you can negotiate a short sale, okay, where the lender will take less than what's owed, but we have to put those packets together and we're going to get to the packet. I want to know, does anyone have any questions so far? And I'm seeing a couple of things over here in the chat. I'm not familiar with the term notice of no agency. So you have to check with your states. Some states don't have a notice of no agency. Hold on one second. Why are you taking my stuff? So Stephen has snuck in here. Oh, I did lock the car door. The key did not work, and I forgot to come up here to get the other key. I did. I attempted to. So let's come here. Let me come back here. Notice of no agent. Can you share your direct mail piece? Oh, I'm gonna give you the direct mail piece. You might have noticed that I've been posting different elements from the class inside of the group. So I'm going to show you the direct mail piece, all of the marketing. There might be a piece in here, so I'll show it to you tonight. But we're going to go in all the steps that you would take in that marketing campaign. So when it comes to a notice of no agency, you can do a notice of no agency or ministerial acts. It is contingent upon what the licensing rules in your state are, okay? And I'm going to write myself a note because I'm going to show you what a notice of no agency is. And the reason is, when it's like self-serving, right? So how do I represent you and your interest if I'm buying or selling your property on my behalf? It's impossible to do that. So every state has some type of rule in there, and we will find that form for you. The notice of no agency is given from the agent either to the buyer or to the seller. So I gave you an example. If I'm going to come in and I want to buy your house, and I know that I'm buying this house, but I'm licensed, okay? I'm giving you a notice of no agency because I don't ever want you to believe that I am working on your behalf, okay? I'm coming in there, I'm self-serving, and I need to publicly let you know that and get your signature so that you understand, okay? The same thing would be true. I cannot, let me give you a thorough example of what that looks like. So there was a young lady, real estate broker here in the city of Chicago, and she owned a property that she was leasing the property out. A young gentleman came to her to lease her unit. She did not lease it to the person, and he went and he wrote a bad review for her on Zillow. When she saw the bad review on Zillow, what she decided that she wanted to do was tell all his business. She talked about his derogatory credit, his bankruptcy, his lack of rental history in her response to him talking poorly about her. So I know the young lady and I like her, and I like to manage and broker. So I don't say anything to you if I don't like you. Let me be clear about that. But if I like you, I will slide into your DM and I'll make a recommendation. So she came over to Facebook. She copied and pasted what she posted on Zillow. She brings it over to Facebook to ask for our thoughts, right, about what she had posted on Zillow. So I slide into her DM. I said, I want to know, did you have a notice of no agency? And she says no. And she typed what some of you typed. She was like, and what is that? I said, well, let me tell you what I believe you've done wrong. I said, if you own this unit and you did not give that tenant a notice of no agency, in the state of Illinois, agency creation can be expressed or implied. That means that either we have something in writing, either we have an oral contract, or implied is through my actions. So if that tenant believes that you were working on their behalf, you have just disclosed their confidential information, which now means that you have violated license law. My recommendation to you is you can respond, but you cannot include any of,
Rodessa Joyner.
hold on. You cannot include any of their confidential information. If so, then you're violating license rules and regulations and the realtor code of ethics. So whether you own the property and you're selling it, whether you own the property and you're leasing it out, whether you're buying property on your own behalf, you have to be clear that that person does not believe that you are working on their behalf, contingent upon. Some of you are in states that agency creation must always need a signature. Some of us in states that agency creation can be oral, and some of us are like in the state of Illinois where agency creation can be implied. So I don't have to have anything in writing. You might believe that I'm working on your behalf. So that means that to ensure that you don't ever think that I'm working for you, I must have a signed notice of no agency so you are clear that I do not. Then I can buy real estate, sell real estate, and just work on my own behalf as an agent. So those were some excellent questions. And thank you, Sylvia. Sylvia just came over here and dropped the notice of no agency. Keep in mind that's going to be a Illinois form, and it's going to be out of our MLS. Which is MRED. Is that the same as a facilitator? So Lisa, no, it's not the same as a facilitator. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is Florida one of the states I think that uses a facilitator? A facilitator, I would consider it more like dual agency, right? Where you're there and you're going back and forth between two people, but you cannot make a recommendation on what to offer, what to accept. You have a CMA and you're giving both of them the same identical CMA. The notice of no agency is only going to be used in a real estate transaction where the agent is acting on their own behalf. And it might be called something else in other states, but it's only when you are going to be a party. So no, Florida default is transaction agent for the transaction, not for either. Okay, thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate that. And so then to negotiate a short sale. So
Marki, you're muted.
okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay. When it knocked me out of the system, it cut my mic off, which is strange. Okay, let me go back over that. So reasons they default is going to be loss of income, divorce. They obtained a subprime loan, an Alt-A loan, an option arm mortgage. They had zero down loans or a depreciating real estate market. And let me say this too. Right now, I have a couple of seniors, I think that might have been where I went out, that I believe in reverse mortgages only because I have seen how reverse mortgages have saved the parents of my friends. I have, some of you have seen these situations. Oftentimes, the child who can afford the house doesn't want the house, and the child who can't afford the house wants it. So in each situation, I've had friends who could afford their parents' house, but they're not their parents' only child. Their siblings don't have credit, can't buy nothing, okay? Can't even get a bill on credit at the liquor store. And they want the house, but they don't understand what mama and daddy had to do to keep the house. And so, in two situations, I have encouraged the senior parents of my friends to get a reverse mortgage so that the senior parent could stay in the house. Keeping in mind, they're very clear that there will be nothing left for their children. I will tell you right now, Miss Thomas, who is the mother of Austin's godmother, took a reverse mortgage in 2004. She renovated her house. I think she's going on 93 this year. There is no way she would have been able to keep her house because she bought her house in 1970. She did not have the income or the resources to renovate the house to be able to stay in the house. And so, because property values are substantially higher now, you have some seniors who, in their best interest, I'm not talking about their children's best interest and what they want, that now might be the time for them to explore a reverse mortgage simply so they can stay in the house. So we looked at that. Miss Thomas is in Inglewood. She got $140,000, okay, in 2004. Just want you to know that. And she was a housekeeper. I don't know what she owed on that sucker today, but I've explained to her kids, I explained it to her before she took this reverse mortgage. If something happens to mommy, y'all have to leave. But that was a option to keep her in her house. And it's let's see here. That's 18 years ago. Why is it important to understand the theory that is used in your state? So contingent upon the state that you're in, you have what are considered to be mortgage theories. And a mortgage theory is going to dictate who owns the home prior to foreclosure and the timeline of the foreclosure. So each of us have our own different mortgage theory, but I want you to know there are only 3 mortgage theories. Either A, you're in a lien theory state. That means that the title is in the borrower's name, or you're in a title theory state where the title is in the lender's name, or you're in an intermediate theory state where the borrower holds title unless the loan is in default. That means that it switches if a notice of default is filed. I'll tell you that I am in a lien theory state, which is why we have such a long foreclosure process. States where you see them go to foreclosure in under 3 months, 90 days, likely are going to be a title theory state. So the first thing you want to do is, hey, what is the lien theory in my state? And I do have a graph that will break down and show you the different lien theories. Title theories are going to have less time. Lien theories are going to have more time. So you probably have seen that, like in the state of Illinois, people were very successful with short sales because they had such a long timeline in which to get it done. Because what has to happen in that foreclosure process is you have to get essentially the mortgage out of, and it's a legal process, out of the homeowner's name, back into the lender's name, in order for the lender to be able to sell the property. Okay, so each state has a different one, and I will put up a map that shows you the mortgage theory in the state in which you live. So we have our mortgage theory, and then you have different types of foreclosure sales. So foreclosure sales are going to happen at the end of the foreclosure process. A judicial foreclosure sale usually occurs in a lien theory or mortgage theory state that favors the homeowner. It gives them a lot of time. It allows them to file injunctions and everything else. It allows them to go file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy to stop the process. And I'm going to give you an example of that. And then you have a non-judicial, which generally occurs in a title or a deed theory state that is going to favor the lender. So what do I mean by judicial in favor of the homeowner? Even though you can hire an attorney to stop a foreclosure process, generally it delays the foreclosure process and doesn't stop it. So I had a client, he had purchased a top floor condo in new construction. There were 2 4-unit buildings that were sitting side by side. He was the only unit that closed in essentially these 8 condo buildings. The lender filed bankruptcy and disappeared. He could not use the front staircase to get to his unit. He only came up to his unit via the back porch. Because the developer did not complete it, the staircases were not complete. They had no lights, okay? No lights. I need you to understand this. So he couldn't even see in the hallway. The reason he would come up the back staircase is because he had rigged him a light based on his electric bill that allowed him to see. When I came to look at his unit, the buzzer system did not work. There was a padlock around the front gate. I had to come in through the back gate and he had to manually open it. Now, the reason he wasn't scared is because he was a police officer and his girlfriend was a police officer. Okay. So when I met with him, he had not even stopped paying his mortgage. Okay. But the question was, how am I going to get out of this? What am I going to do? Like, it was a horrible situation. And I talked to a lot of people on what could he do. And they was like, he can't do nothing. That's essentially what they said. So the recommendation from everyone was for him to stop paying his mortgage, for him to save his money to buy a property cash, understanding that he would have derogatory credit as a result of his failure to pay the mortgage. So get this. We can't sell the unit. There's nobody going to buy this unit. Every type of lien one could have against a building, this property had it. Water liens, tax, everything you can imagine. So fast forward, 2 years have passed and he ain't paid this mortgage. He went and bought a car cash. He got his money to buy this new property cash. So he called me. He was like, Marki, so what do I do now? He said they've set a sales date. And he's like, I appreciated the ability to stockpile my money. I want to stay a little longer. I said, are you kidding me? He was like, no, I'm dead serious. He was like, I lived in hell over here for years, paying that mortgage every single month. What do I need to be able to do to stay another year? I said, well, I'm going to refer you to a foreclosure attorney. She's not going to stop the process, but she can stall the process. He stayed another 18 months because we have a judicial foreclosure process. And as I'm telling these stories, like, I stopped doing short sales in 2012 because it was just depressing. He was closer, like towards the end of the process, but it was the most unimaginable thing you could ever witness, that you don't even have a buzzer system. You can't use your front hallway. You have rigged lights on the back porch. You have to manually, off of an alley, open up that back gate. But that judicial process is very long, and we're going to walk through what that timeline looks like. So a foreclosure, so we know what a short sale is, the lender's willing to accept less than what is owed. A foreclosure is a legal process by which a borrower in default under a mortgage is deprived of his or her interest in the mortgage property. A foreclosure essentially is a forced sale of the property. The forced sale of the property happens generally at an auction in the county where the property is located. So for those of you who are here in Cook County, in the city of Chicago, Mary Richardson actually has taken me to the auction numerous times as she was walking me through the foreclosure process. But what happens at the foreclosure sale, a lot of the investors now, because of everything that's been going on with the price increase, the multiple bids, they were going to the foreclosure auction in order to buy the property. The foreclosure auction generally requires 10% down at the time of auction, with the balance being due 24 hours or the next business day. And so if you were to go in on, if you went in this past Friday and you were successful in winning the bid at the auction, then that means that you need to have the rest of your money tomorrow to secure the property as the result of the foreclosure sale. So there's some people who buy nothing but foreclosed properties at the time of auction. But I want you to think of it as a cash world. It is not the world for you to go and get your money together. It's the world that you already have your money together. So let's walk through this timeline. And this would be Illinois, but I want to kind of give you an idea of what the timeline is like. So let's assume that a person missed their first mortgage payment in January. Okay. What will happen is they're going to have late fees. And let's assume that then in February, they also missed the second mortgage payment. And then they are going to have additional late fees because they didn't make that second mortgage payment. In March, they missed their third mortgage payment. This is a trigger, okay? For now, the lender is going to hire an attorney, generally in that county, and that attorney is going to research if the lender has the right to file a notice of default, okay? So they have to reach out, they have to hire an attorney. That attorney is going to review title and make sure that that lender has the right to file it. March the 15th, they're going to receive some additional late fees. Now, keep in mind, right now, the only people who know that this homeowner is in trouble is the homeowner and the bank. There is nothing public that says, hey, so-and-so has, missed a mortgage payment. Nothing has been publicly filed. After 90 days, that attorney can file their notice of default. What you will see it as a lis pen. A lis pendens means pending litigation, okay? And now is also the time that the bank is attempting to order a BPO. BPO is an acronym for broker price opinion, where they want to know what is the value of the asset. Okay. Now, this might not happen in 90 days. It might happen in 120 days. It might happen in 150 days, because as notice of default start to increase, then you see banks having to go back and hire for these new positions because they haven't had to hire for these positions. If we were to go back over a decade ago, it took time for them to ramp the systems up. So everything was slow. Then we got into a flow. Then we had too many employees and things really got fast. And then they started laying off people and things got slow again. So it is a process. So now this person, it's public information that a notice of default has been filed. All of the title companies are scrubbing this information, and now it's a part of public list. Okay, you can buy these lists. And when we were buying these lists, what we were doing, and I did it wrong initially, and I shifted how I did it. I was pulling a list every 30 days in order to mail a postcard. But I was pulling a new list. What I realized was that no one was seeing my direct mail piece twice. And the rules to marketing is that people need to see that one piece of marketing consistently. So what I started doing was I went back and looked at, by statute, the minimum timeline of a foreclosure process in the state of Illinois. I knew that from the time the notice of default was filed until the time of foreclosure sale, I had 7 months. So I started pulling one list and marketing to that one list consistently for 7 months. So what would happen is every month I would have more people who would start calling me. And it wasn't no website, I don't believe, on my cards, but we'll see in a minute. They were calling me. They like ugly generic postcards. The cute glossy ones did not generate the same amount of leads. And here's what is interesting. I did postcards and not letters. The reason I did postcards and not letters is because when I would go to a homeowner's house, without fail, either on the dining room table or in a plastic bag sitting on the dining room table, they had all of the direct mail pieces that were sent to them. The reason mine stood out is because it was a red 2-sided postcard and it did not have a lot of language. People who are in default tend not to open their mail because they don't want to see another past due notice. Okay. So the jumbo red or that bright yellow, something like this color here, postcards that the education providers used to send us for continuing education work very well. The cute glossy ones, they don't like that. So now it's public information. A notice of default has been filed. Months ago, I told you I'd give an example of a direct mail piece that I think that we should be mailing. When I go back now, because we're starting to see notice of defaults, and because we can pull from different sources if any violations have been filed, if the property is in probate, I want to now go back and see, can I pull properties, notice of default and probate, and they have violations? That means that's going to be a substantially more eager seller, okay? And you would then do that direct mail piece, and I'll give you the language for that. So keep this in mind. So now we've worked from beginning to end. I now want to start with the end in mind because I want to understand. I know I have a 7-month period of time. There are months that nothing goes on. So when does something then start to pick up and happen again? 45 days prior to the sale, okay? 3 times they must publish that the sale is going to occur. And I don't know if these rules have changed in recent years, so this is something I have to check to see. Will they consider an online news source a source, okay? But 45 days prior to a foreclosure sale, they must publish the sale. It has to be in a newspaper or general publication, and they have to publish that 3 times. So a lot of people were still reading the back of the newspapers, right? And they were getting those notice of defaults. And I actually had people who would take a picture of it and send it and say, hey, look who's in foreclosure, right? But 45 days prior to the end. So we have a 7-month period of time that starts when that notice of default is filed. We have months that don't nothing happen. 45 days prior to the actual sales date, then it must be published 3 times that a sale is going to occur. Now I want to give you the breakdown of this timeline. So assume that in November, that a sheriff sale is going to occur. A sheriff sale is also going to be that auction or referred to as the foreclosure sale. It's going to also end what they call, and this is in our lien theory states, in the right of redemption. So as homeowners, we have the right to redeem the property. But when it gets to that sale, it ends that right of redemption. You have to come with 10%. You need the balance in 24 hours or the next business day. And here's the thing, the property is not yours once you give up all of the money. So let's assume that we went to a foreclosure sale on November the 20th. They're then going to have to do what is called a confirmation of sale. And they prepare a report that is sent to a judge. And the judge must then say, hey, y'all did everything. You did everything according to the law. This property now is going to become an REO. An REO, you might hear bank owned, means real estate owned by the bank. Okay. 30 days after the confirmation of the sales, the occupancy rights are terminated. However, you still must evict. Okay. This is when we start thinking about cash for keys, where you can get 1 to 3 months. And you could type in for me, Bill, how many months they're giving up now for cash for keys. But that means that you give me the keys to the property, you give me the property in broom swept clean condition, and I am able to cut you a check because the bank is going to give me the money to cut you the check for you to vacate the premises, because we don't want you to damage the property or anything. And I'm seeing a lot of questions. Okay. So this is kind of like that timeline. For me, it says, hey, I got 7 months. I got 7 months to go after this homeowner to sell their house. And guess what? I want you to start thinking the same thing. It likely won't be subject to a short sale, which is what we're going to get into next week, that whole short sale packet. Okay. But a notice of default will be filed. And now I want to make sure that I'm doing direct mail pieces and I'm marketing to homeowners that a notice of default has been filed so that I can create new inventory. We want to be able to create that new inventory. I'm going to come over here so I can see these questions. And one thing, and I'm going to keep saying it, we are getting ready to see a paradigm shift in real estate. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everybody in real estate is not going to be here. We're at 1.53 million realtors. We don't need 1.53 million realtors. But I want you to still think about it, because this is real. What is going to happen as a buyer agent when you go to the MLS and there's no offer of compensation? What this is telling me is the listing agent is really getting ready to dominate and rule. Now, keep in mind, there's no average, standard, or normal, but this is what I want you to think about this for a second. And this is just a business strategy. So I'm the listing agent. I'm now investing in direct mail pieces. I don't have to offer compensation. What you think gonna happen when you come to ask me for some of this money? How much money I'm giving you? Yeah. I ain't gonna say I'm gonna give you 0, but I ain't gonna give you as much as you could get today. Okay. Because I ain't got to give you nothing. It's your responsibility as the buyer's agent to go and negotiate the compensation from your buyer. But I'm gonna tell you again, if you have an exclusive buyer representation agreement, then you, on behalf of your buyer client, can have the buyer negotiate your compensation. The only time the buyer can use the sales contract to negotiate your compensation is if you have a signed buyer agreement for your services. Okay, so those are going to be a couple of the shifts that we're going to see. So to me, I'm trying to get every type of listing known to mankind, because listing agents historically have always had to negotiate the compensation. Very few buyer agents know how to negotiate compensation. So keep that in mind. So we want to get all the listings humanly possible. So let me come back over here and take a look at some of these questions. I got to stretch this out just a little bit so I can see it. Okay. And I'm gonna go back. Can you share the presentation? Yes, I can. Is Mary Richardson still teaching? Yes, Mary Richardson is still teaching. I will make sure that I drop Mary Richardson's contact information. Who is Mary Richardson? Mary Richardson is really the queen of foreclosures. I'm not the true queen. Mary Richardson is the queen. Mary Richardson has now been, and let me tell you what her specialty is. Once that notice of default has been filed and then going to auction. She has, what's the word that I want to use? It's going to come to me. She owns a lot of real estate. She bought a lot of properties at the auction. She has been in the auction side of this business now for 40 years. And when I took her class, I think it was $350. I went downtown. You spend the whole day with her. She does not allow for more than 3 people in the class at a time. And we went through every municipal office in this county and what that office does and how that office is valuable to the real estate process. So I went to foreclosure auctions. We talked about tax deed sales. We went through everything, how to read a Sitwell map, all of that you get in Mary Richardson's class. So I'll share her information because Mary is still out here doing it. Can we do a field trip to one auction? I guess we can do a field trip. Where do you buy NOD lists? Let me tell you, I would not buy an NOD list right now. I would recommend that you reach out to, if you have a title rep or a title company that you do business with, and see if they have it. So that's the last place. About 6 months ago, I started reaching out to them because they have those lists. Also, you can go through the predictive analytics tool. Remind has it. If you're in a city that has Realtist in it, they have it. And then for us, it was, what's the name of this company? I'm gonna find the name of the company, but most libraries have access to notice a default list. The only problem with you getting it free, because it's public information, is that it is not going to come in a CSV formatted file. It is going to come as a PDF. You actually want to have it in a CSV formatted file so that you can do your label. So let me get a couple of things here. I need to be able to give you a couple of sources for your notice of default list and where you can get that information from. Keeping in mind that you can get it from the library. And for those of you who live in Northern Illinois or Northwest Indiana, we're part of, I didn't know this until foreclosures. Libraries have a library system, okay? So generally a resource that's available in one library is available in all libraries across the country because they're all a part of their library system. Also check with the National Association of Realtors. We have our own librarians, and they could tell you if there are any third-party tools that you have access to that you don't know that you have access to being a realtor member. So a lot of them, hold on one second, let me mute somebody. A lot of them, we have access to the back end of these systems. Stellar MLS and IMAP, where you search by county to set up the list pendant. So some of the MLSs I'm seeing have their own system. Can you download the list of notice of defaults in HomeSnap? Yvonne, let me ask Carrie that question, and I'm gonna need to download, I'll have the whole chat. HomeSnap Pro Plus, HomeSnap Pro or Pro Plus, I'm thinking that they must have it. So some of the systems definitely have it. I'm going to see where I can find it for you free. Jeannie Birch, let me talk to Mary Richardson and see if we can do a field trip because she's the true queen. And it's a day, you got to wear your gym shoes because you're going to go to about 10 different people. I did call her and she was going to reach out to me to attend an auction with her. So I'm hearing that she's up for doing that. I note on my buyer agreement, in the event the seller is not willing to pay the percentage of the buyer agent commission will be paid by the buyer. Kanisha, that's a great update. I will share this presentation. Mary Richardson is still teaching. How can you obtain the list and addresses in foreclosure? So, can I expound upon the zero down loan? So I'm going to get you a couple of resources for the notice of defaults, all resources that you're asking for. My goal is to have those before we have the next class. So then I don't want to have too much stuff to do. So the goal is to have that. So there's a lot of finance options where people didn't have to put any money down. We will say that in the last 24 months, there were very few 100% finance programs because sellers weren't willing to accept that as a finance option. Are there still 100% loans? Yep, FHA even has a 100% finance loan. We just haven't seen them in the past 2 years based on multiple bid situations and people tending to have to put down a lot of money in order to be able to get a property. So, you know, every time you look around, it's something different. But what is kind of funny to me is how many people are scared about the interest rate today. The first property I bought back in 1994, my interest rate, which was a stellar rate at the time, was 8.375. It was the IDA program loan, and no one was complaining. So everybody, I got to call my girl, Mary Richardson, and see, you know what? I'm going to see how many people she can do in a class, and let me see field trip, what I can get her to do. And the reason her groups are generally small is because people have a lot of questions. So if we negotiate a field trip, you're gonna have to limit the amount of questions, or y'all gonna have to send them back to me, and I give her the list of questions so that she can be able to make it through her presentation. When do you think the no compensation law will go into effect? When the Department of Justice decides it will. We have very little control over that. We are right now, we have 3 or 4 lawsuits that are going on. All of them are pertaining to that compensation. And let me say this. If you think, you know, it's going to disrupt how we do business. But why is the listing agent negotiating the compensation on behalf of the buyer? Essentially, that's what they're saying, right? And so there's some other things that, like protecting the data, I could see NAR fighting substantially harder over. But this one is kind of like, yeah, no, you should negotiate as a buyer's agent the same way that a listing agent negotiates. And why does the listing agent get to tell you what part of the whole they think you should get? So that part of it, I'm kind of like, oh, I see it. Some of the others, like the protecting the data, that's the real battle, which we want them to be able to protect the data. Let's see here. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, a lot of us who bought properties back in the early 90s had some interest rates that were substantially higher than they are right now. So, you know, I think the higher interest rate, well, let me tell you what I'm doing. One of the reasons for me bringing the lenders in to do the lending panel on mastering real estate financing in a shifting market is because I also want to do a public facing one. What I want to do is interview lenders about the true cost of the money and how do we make this work. So yeah, interest rates are, you know, whatever percentage higher than they were. Let's say it's 2% higher. How do we still make these deals work? What are all the options? What are all the strategies that a buyer can implement to still get a house now? And they were willing to spend more than what the house was worth 60 days ago. But now the interest rate went up and don't nobody want to buy. So I'm a little bit baffled by that. And everybody could not have been this close on their margins. Everybody. So think about in your marketplace, interviewing 5 to 6 lenders who are strategic. Because guess what? Lenders want to get buyers in property. They're not making any money right now. So putting on your own lending panel on how to finance real estate when interest rates start to go up. Oops, I just got my title. Y'all can use that. Yep, when interest rates go up. I didn't know what I was going to call that, but there you go right there, right? How to finance real estate when interest rates go up. Do it as a Facebook Live. Have more than one lender. They all willing to play well in the sandbox. Now that refi business then dried up, you can get them all on a nice little panel on how we can finance. And you want to say, hey, this is the value of real estate. This is what the interest rates have gone up. This is how you could do an interest buy down, right? No one's talking about an interest buy down. They still exist. How do we make that happen today? What is redemption? Because you've probably seen it on the slides. Redemption is when the borrower can recover the property after the notice of default has been filed. So in my state, we have a 7-month redemption. Maybe they hit the lottery. Maybe they come back and they structure a different deal with their lender. Everything is still going to be subject to lender approval. Foreclosure defense in court is seldom successful in defeating the foreclosure action, but it may prolong the foreclosure by as much as 24 months. The longest foreclosure process I'm gonna tell my business. I wasn't gonna tell y'all my business, but I'm gonna tell y'all my business. Um, I had did a land contract on a condo. The reason was I got married June the 6th, 2006, got pregnant July the 4th, 2006, and realized quickly that the one bathroom I had in my condo did not suit me, and the one bathroom that Stephen had in his condo did not suit us either. So we needed substantially more space. So I'm not going to mention this person's name, but it was a real estate investor. He had just closed on a duplex condo. It was $289,000. So we do a land contract to buy the condo. We move in. We're there about a year, and out of nowhere, a notice of default is served to the condo unit. Okay. So that means then you got my money and you allowed the unit to go into default. So we moved in September of 2006. So this notice comes September 2007. And I'm like, okay, so what you gonna do? And he like, what you mean what I'm gonna do? You still got to pay the mortgage. I went and looked up all his properties and realized that he was in default on every property. So I came back to him. I said, no, I'm not paying another penny of rent. I wasn't paying you buckets. I said, and if you attempt to evict me, I will get together with all of your other tenants and we will file a class action lawsuit against you, and you won't get their money either. So he said, okay. So he ends up coming to real estate school and taking my class. So about a year later, it was 2008 now. He called, it's around Christmas, and he was like, man, Marky, you really just gonna do me like this. I was like, you did me, you took my money. You're in violation of the RLTO, the real estate landlord tenant ordinance. Like I had it all spit out. I was running this on him. And so I said, and you still got these like 10 other properties that you're getting money from these people every single month, right? And so he says, well, would you find it in your heart to give me something? I said, yep, you can stop by. I'll give you 1 month's rent. And I gave him 1 month's rent in 2008 around Christmas. But now, mind you, I had to pay the assessments every single month. If not, the condo association could have filed a notice of default and got me out faster than he could have ever got me out. So I still paid the monthly assessments. Here's the craziest thing. We moved in 2006. I stopped making the payments in September 2007. I gave him 1 month's rent in 2008 around Christmas. We left in November of 2010 because we bought this house. Okay. One of the reasons I was so proficient in foreclosures and short sales is because every sheet of paper that came there, I knew what it looked like because they were serving the tenant of the unit. Every shred, everything, right? So what happened was when we buy this house, we come and look at this house, and it was a hot house. How about he's driving down the street talking about he coming to look at the house? And if y'all know my husband, you know he ignorant. Stephen told him, get in your car and take your ass on because this ain't gonna never be your house. You know you can't buy nothing, right? That was the response out on the sidewalk. That property, get this, when I moved, because I'm in good standing with the condo association, how about one of my agents who was going through a divorce came and took over the monthly assessments, because the monthly assessments I think were $506 a month. He wasn't gonna have no 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom. So they let my agent move in to pay the monthly assessments. He stayed there until 2013. That's when they finally foreclosed on that unit. So these processes can go on for forever, but I was sitting there getting every shred of paperwork. So you can prolong these processes a very long time. So another resource that you can use, and I gave an example. I actually went back over here to check their site out. Most title companies have information that you can pull. Citywide Title was one of my sponsors for a lot of my foreclosures and short sale classes back in the day. And what they can pull for you is what is called a property profile. And I'm going to give you their new updated link, but they can give you all of the records. If a notice of default has been filed, do they have outstanding taxes on the property? So any title company, I'm just using Citywide Title because we did so much business together, but every last one of these title companies, they're able to pull what is called a property profile. They give you all of the mortgages, if it's a first, second mortgage, any type of liens against the property, any type of judgments, because some people definitely have tax liens that are outstanding. This website, and this is a Illinois-based company, but I want you to start thinking about the different title companies, and if you have any relationships with title reps, and contingent upon your state, you might be a title rep yourself. But if you have certain properties that are in mind, you can always come and do a order for what is called a property profile of any property, and it will give you all of that information about a property. You need to have the seller's name, the property address, and the city, state, and zip. Most of these you can just do with the property address, because sometimes the seller's name you might have might not be the actual address. So if you're in Illinois, you can go over to Citywide Title, but you can do the same thing with a Chicago title, with a Fidelity title, with a proper title. They're all pulling this information. So a lot of foreclosure reports are put together by title companies where back in the day, they would actually have someone who physically goes down there and combs those records. Some of the municipalities have updated the ability to do what is called an RSS, stands for Real Simple Syndication, where their information is syncing to these different providers who are paying for access to that. I will tell you that county records tend to be a little old and antiquated. Also keep in mind that when you think about your different municipalities, their records are about 80% accurate. Okay, only because there was so much manual input over the years that there's about 80% accuracy. So this is what I want you to think about if you're thinking about doing short sales. FHA criteria, the property must be listed. So a homeowner cannot do a for sale by owner and short sale a FHA property. FHA will pay up to 6% in sales commission. The mortgager can receive up to $1,000 in closing cost incentives. Now, this is what you have to think about. With an FHA mortgage, they have mortgage insurance protection. So if the homeowner defaults, the lender is going to be able to recoup their money through the insurance. So there is a mathematical equation to this. Net proceeds have to be equal to or greater than 84% of the as-is property current market analysis. Because the way the lender is thinking is, I don't have to take less than this amount. I can let it go through the foreclosure process. The property is insured. I can be able to recoup my money. So that you got to keep that additional mathematical equation if the person has an FHA mortgage. The ratio of the CMA to the total current loan amount is greater than or equal to 63%. Now I'll give you these slides, but you can pull out your phone and take a picture. Repairs cost less than 10% of the after repaired value. So these are some special stipulations because those homeowners who have an FHA mortgage have mortgage insurance protection. Under the VA, the criteria is that the net proceeds are greater than and equal to 88% of the current market analysis because it also has its own insurance. So we do have those insurance criteria that are there based on the mortgage that the person might have taken, okay? Okay, I see y'all got it. Hold on one second. According to the mortgage that the person might have taken. So you want to always do that math because you might not get your short sale approved if it doesn't meet those mathematical equations. What if the person files bankruptcy? So oftentimes people are filing a bankruptcy, not a Chapter 7, but a Chapter 13. If they file a Chapter 7, in order to keep the property, they have to go back and essentially redeem that property as well. But a lot of them are filing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. The seller has to obtain approval from the court to be able to sell that property if it is included in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Some states protect the homeowner, and bankruptcy is a legal issue. So you want to ask them, hey, did you file a bankruptcy? And was the property included or not included in the bankruptcy? The PMI, the private mortgage insurance, insures the loan against default. Private mortgage insurance is going to be for your Fannie Mae and your Freddie Mac loans, where MIP, mortgage insurance protection, is for your FHA products. And the number one thing they want to know is, will the loss exceed the insured amount? So these loans have insurance. When insurance comes into play, some people are willing to wait for that and allow the property to foreclose. So the steps that one is going to take in that short sale is we got to gather the information. We want every sheet of paper work known to mankind, but next week we'll go over that. We have to have open, honest communication. If people are ethical, you know they lying to you, I would not do business with them. I had one gentleman, I listed 4 properties for him to do a short sale on. He was a habitual liar. He had purchased all 4 properties with a loan officer that I knew. He purchased them all, no income, no asset verification, because he had an 800 FICO score. He got money on every last one of his purchases. Now, one of them I was successful in selling. Oh, I remember the guy who bought that property. Actually lived around the corner. And we got it approved because he did the no income, no assets. So he did not provide any paperwork to close the short sale because he did not provide any paperwork in order to be able to buy the property. I knew he was lying to me when I pulled up to the property, and the boards, because they board up a lot of properties here in the city of Chicago, they were like this gray color. And generally, the boards do not turn gray. It takes years for them to turn gray. So I'm like, ain't no way you boarded this property up and these boards turned this color gray. The reason I bring the mortgage company up, it was a time that I was still a loan originator and doing real estate. And actually, he was my first short sale I ever did. And when I was in the loan prospecting system, I saw his name. And so I realized who had closed the 4 properties he bought. And they were in, I shouldn't tell y'all this either, they were in a locked file because they had closed the year before I was selling them. I politely grabbed the loan processor's key to the cabinets, went and got the files because I needed to know what I was dealing with. And just so happens I had access. Well, I'm not going to say I had access. I took access. Lo and behold, the appraisal that he used to buy the property wasn't even of the property. The appraiser had lied and used photos from a different property. And so based on me then knowing all of his information, I came back and developed him a plan of action. Like I told him, look, I went and took your files. I happen to know who did your loans. Everything you've done is fraudulent. We broke it down, and we were able to sell that one property over on Aberdeen. Listed the home, obtained offers. I'm actually lucky we sold that property. Once you obtain the offers, contingent upon the bank, some will pre-approve you without an offer to be subject to an offer. Others are like, get an offer, submit everything. You're going to submit that to the bank, and keep in mind, we're going to go over all the paperwork next week. You're going to negotiate the deal, and then you are going to close that deal. The open communication and trying to dig deeper into the situation is going to be very important. I just happened to have access. This guy didn't know I had that type of access, but I knew something wasn't right when I pulled up to the property. The back porch was falling in, the front porch was falling in. And these boards were gray, and I knew that that had to be boarded up for years, well before he had bought it. I don't know where the HAFA program, the Home Affordable Foreclosure Alternative Program, is right now. I will make a note to look that up as well to see if, because we are still living in a pandemic, have they come up with any special programs for homeowners where a notice of default has been filed. One of the reasons that a seller would want to sell is to preserve as much of their credit as humanly possible. So imagine at the top, a person decides that they want a short sale or sell. Imagine that each X is a ding to the credit, right? At the top is the credit they would have going through a short sale versus if they decided to go through full foreclosure process, what they would have at the bottom. People tend to have a higher FICO score who decide to do a short sale or sell sooner rather than later. And I posted this in the group to kind of show you the impact of the credit. If a person was to be 30 days late on a mortgage, it will give you the starting FICO score, but this is the impact to the credit. So this is already posted in the group that you can download, and you can take a picture of what that credit is going to look like, because there is going to be negative impact, but short sales or selling those properties sooner rather than later actually preserves the FICO score, and they do want to preserve the FICO score. After a person has gone through foreclosure or short sales, can they come back and buy a property? Yep. And here's, I think, what is crazy. They can also be viewed as a first-time home buyer if they have not owned a property as their principal residence in the past 3 years, which now means that they can get all of the down payment assistance programs. So I had a couple of people who we went back to, put them in a home after going through foreclosure and short sale, and they were treated as a first-time home buyer. Under FHA guidelines, you generally can come back, and keep in mind, this is contingent upon the overlays that a bank has. So FHA has, they'll tell you 580 FICO score, but Bank of America has an overlay. They might not do down to a 580 FICO score, or Citibank has an overlay, and they might not do the same FICO score that Bank of America does. But these are the guidelines of FHA and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, keeping in mind that every bank can have an overlay. So FHA will allow you to buy 2 years after bankruptcy, 3 years after foreclosure, 3.5% down. FHA minimum FICO score is 580. Most lenders want a 620 because of the overlays. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, 4 years after bankruptcy, 2 years after a short sale, 4 years after a deed in lieu of foreclosure, 5 years after foreclosure, 10% down, 680 FICO score, and investors have to wait 7 years. So we still we want to get them to sell before foreclosure, because foreclosure is going to delay their ability to be able to buy. But when they come back to buy, they can now be treated as a first-time home buyer who can get all of the special finance programs that are available in the marketplace. We don't use title companies. You don't use title companies in Connecticut. Yolanda, where are you all closing? Would this change at all if the PMI has fallen off the loan? So let me, most lenders, the PMI doesn't just fall off. Generally, they have to solicit and send in an appraisal that says that if they're at an 80% or less loan to value, then they're requesting. So would that, so the question I would have, Kanisha, what do you mean, would it change? Would it change which element? Because the Fannie, the ability to buy again and all that would still be the same, okay? And Yolanda, that is interesting. The attorney does the closing in Connecticut, and they get the clear to close from the lender. Oh, very interesting. And the lender, the attorney is not working on conjunction of a title company. Okay. I did not know that. And I've been to Connecticut quite a few times. So I want to know, what questions do you have? Any part of the foreclosure? No, it won't change any part of the foreclosure, because the foreclosure process is something that is going to be driven by the state, and where the property is located will play a bigger role than what type of mortgage they have and if they had private mortgage insurance. So the state dictates that foreclosure process, and sometimes the county can have some special rules and regulations, but it's definitely going to be a legal process, that is going to be driven by the state. North Carolina is an attorney state too. So guess what? I want to go back and ask this question. So we are an attorney state here in the state of Illinois, but the attorneys work for a title company. So what I'm curious about, in the states that don't use a title company, who's doing the title insurance, right? Because the title insurance is where they're doing the research to protect the future buyer against past occurrences, okay? If you don't know this, just a little nugget here. One of the reasons, especially for my newer agents, one of the reasons that it seems to be a battle between the attorneys, whether that is the attorney working with the seller or the attorney working for the buyer. If you did not know this, the attorney working on behalf of the seller makes substantially more money than the attorney working for the buyer, because these attorneys on the seller side are all agents of a title company. So I'm gonna do a little research, okay, to make sure I get you the correct answer. That means they also get a check that they do not have to disclose for them performing their jobs as an attorney. So one of the ways that I work with my cousin Christopher, when he first came into the business, I'm telling all my bad behavior. It was a property, it was over Southeast, and there was a direct mail piece. I was actually showing a client this property. It was a beautiful bungalow. And the direct mail piece stated that they were an attorney and they would love to work with the seller, and that they were willing to discount their services to $99 as an attorney for the seller. So I'm like, well, are they able to do this? And it's because they were getting paid another $1,200 to $1,500 directly from the title company. Most attorneys working on behalf of the seller, they're going to get that check either day of closing or the next day directly from the title company. So when we're talking about bifurcation and trying to send sellers other places and buyers other places, I can tell you now, that attorney for the seller is going to be pissed, because they want all of the money from the title company. So I'm going to reach out to a couple of so you all might be using an attorney, but those attorneys are representing a title company, and that title company is paying them, and they get good money from the title company. I'll tell you here in the state of Illinois, I'm seeing that they're getting somewhere between $1,200 to $1,500. That is not what is on the HUD. It is what they get once this deal is done for acting as an agent of the title company. Okay. Now, are there some states that you only see that person? Most definitely. The attorney. But yes, they're making a lot of money. Hey, Foster, what's going on? So what questions do you have? Because I don't want to keep y'all all night. And keep in mind, we still are meeting for 3 more Mondays, because we still got 3 full classes. Next week is all of the forms, every different form that you're going to need. The week after that is all about financing. The week after that is all about marketing. But there was something that was asked of me. So hold on one second. I'm going to show this to you. But let me kind of sort through my slides a little bit and see if was there anything. Yep. Okay, we got that. Oh, it wasn't in here. I do want to show you one more thing. So what can happen after the fact? Oh, I got a couple of things I want to show you. Now I'm realizing I hid the slide. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. Hold on one second. After I tell you this story where I was just acting crazy, but hold on, let me go give you this one slide real quick. Okay. I am going to show the example that I said that I was going to show you. So what happens, where does this debt go, right? This difference, this short. That lenders were filing against the previous buyer. Hold on. Okay. Investment property, they were putting liens against If it was an investment property, they were placing liens against principal residents. They were doing wage garnishments. They were garnishing tax returns. They were coming initially for the deficiency judgment, 7 years with a 3-year renewal. And at the beginning, they were giving out 1099. So you would owe taxes on the non-earned income. There was a time where the federal government decided that they wouldn't issue any 1099. So people did not have to pay taxes on the unearned income. But that's been over with for a period of time. So with these short deficiency judgments, if it's investment property, liens against principal residents, wage garnishment of tax returns, it would last 7 years. And then those lenders can come back and renew it an additional 3 years. So I do want to give you a couple of ideas when it comes to marketing, but keep in mind the 4th class is all about marketing. So here was one of our direct mail pieces. It just said strategy on it. I will tell you this was not nearly as successful as us just doing the red postcard. Now I'm going to tell you about this marketing piece. I remember sitting in Keller Williams on 47th Street. And at this time we had the home affordable foreclosure alternative program, and they were giving homeowners up to $3,000. So I decided that I'm gonna get me a red envelope. I'm gonna put the brochure in there, and I'm gonna cut me some money that looked like $3,000. Mind you, I sat in the office, socialized all day, and I don't think I had 10 of these envelopes at the end of the day. This was by far my worst marketing idea ever. Okay. I sat in the office all day, socialized, but I thought visually it gave a good look, right? Because we got money coming out the envelope. Wayne Bill, those in Chicago know who Wayne Bill is. He's a top producer. Wayne walked past me and he said, "So Marki, you think that's a good idea?" I said, "Well, I woke up and thought it was a good idea, but now that I spent the whole day here, this is the dumbest idea I've ever had in life." Wayne said, "Marki, why don't you just go and get you some door hangers? I'm sure you can get 1,000 for $100. I think there was $112.50, right?" And so this was substantially a better idea than me cutting out this money. It served the purpose to get word out about that initiative. But